Okay, can everybody hear me? Good. My name's Eric Darby, and I thank you guys all for joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started, as we only have a half hour, so I want to make sure that we don't get behind schedule. Before I start, I do want to mention right out of the gate that there will be a quiz at the end of the presentation, so make sure to pay attention. And whoever gets the first correct answer to the quiz will win this. I want to attempt to explain exactly what that is, because as you can probably tell, it's a little bit out of my element, but apparently that is a gaffer or a gaffer or gaffer. This is gaffer. You guys probably know that much better than I. And Tetley, who's the focus of our case study, donated that so we can give it away at the end. So, like I say, make sure to pay attention, and we'll ask a question at the end, and I'm about to introduce, will be the judge as to who raises their hand first. And that lucky person, assuming you get the answer correct, will take home our prize. As I mentioned, my name's Eric Darby, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Sitefinity. I'll have a little bit to say about Sitefinity at the end of the presentation, but if there's one thing I've learned in the years that I've been working in software marketing is that always, when you guys come to hear a case study, I'm pretty much the last person that you want to hear from in that process, so put myself at the end. Lucky for us, I have two real people who have actually delivered on the promise that my company really strives to support with our CMS. First, the implementer in our story is Gwillem Lewis. Gwillem has over 10 years of experience in the digital marketing sector. He co-founded Keon, a specialist digital production agency that was recently, just last year, acquired by Communisys PLC, where he now holds the title of Digital Director. A founding principle of Keon, which Gwill remains focused on with Communisys today, is delivering the benefits of an outsourced development and production cost structure while striving to really maintain the important communication between the end client, their agency, and the development team that Gwill is actually managing. That model ensures, as this case study demonstrates, that every project's delivered successfully with no surprises for anybody involved. Most importantly, we have with us as well, as I've already mentioned, a customer of both Gwill and mine's, named Nick Purnell from Tata Global Beverages. Nick is also an industry veteran with over 15 years in the web business, working on a variety of internet and intranet projects across many different verticals. For the past 3 years plus, he's been working with Tata Global Beverages as their collaborations program manager. In this role, he oversees all the company's intranet and internet solutions. He works between the different areas of the business to ensure the success of their web-based assets by translating business needs to developers and vice versa. So with that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Nick, and let you guys hear more about how they were able to save time and create better user experience by changing their CMS.
Hi. So you can hear me okay, yeah? Can't hear anything at this end, so if I start to shout, please excuse me. So yeah, Nick Purnell, Collaborations Program Manager at Tata Global Beverages. Went into Tata, was asked to go there to deliver a variety of web and intranet projects. Amongst those were some brand sites for the Tetley brand and also a new corporate website. Where were we when I got there? Well, there was a project already ongoing. There were multiple regional websites. They were managed by different brand managers. They were owned by different agencies. Their look and feel varied. We weren't quite sure where things were hosted, how they were hosted. If there was a problem, we weren't always sure how to go and fix it. Often the brand manager might have left the business, and that then created a new problem for us trying to find it out. So we, from an IT perspective, needed to get a handle on all of this and try to centralize it. And start to take a sort of professional approach towards web content management and managing those assets. There were no standards in place, so as I said, many of the sites would use different styles of logos, would use different colour backgrounds, might even use a different language, as in not only the literal language they're using, but also how they spoke about the brand. We also, when I got there, we had a strategy to use SharePoint for all of our internal and external websites, intranet, etc. It proved over time to be expensive, restrictive, and very inflexible. Why was that? First of all, the hosting of external-facing SharePoints from a licensing point of view is excessive. The infrastructure you need, the physical hardware to maintain that, was also proven to be very expensive. It cost us around £60,000 a year for the hardware. Every time we needed to make a minor change in SharePoint, we were using SharePoint 2007. We really struggled and had to go back to the agency for sort of technical changes. So over and over again, we found that we were having to spend more money trying to keep this going. Also, the SharePoint training was proven to be extremely expensive. Now, I'm not going out my way to sort of put you off SharePoint, because we were on SharePoint 2007 internally. Our external sites were using SharePoint 2010. They're both good platforms. We use them internally, and we use them successfully internally for collaboration and publishing of our internal intranet. It's the right tool for that. It just didn't, for us, prove to be the right external-facing tool. So we needed to take a look and see what else was out there, what else was on the market, and you know, were there better ways around doing this. So we decided to pull together a sort of strategy to look at content management from a Tata Global Beverages point of view and what would suit us as a brand. And among the many different criteria that we used, the important ones were that, one, it had to be really easy to use. My view was, if you could use PowerPoint or Word or something like that, like the brand managers do, then they should be able to use this tool. They shouldn't need a lot of training to use it. It should be quick to implement. It shouldn't take months and months and months of building a template. It should be pretty quick off the shelf. I was looking to reduce the project's budget. Now, with all that £60,000 a year hosting and other fees that we were spending, it was costing us around £250,000. Well, the gain by moving out of SharePoint to another platform, we proved a saving of £250,000 over a 5-year period, which I think is good enough reason to change platform. But we had to prove we could reduce budget. We had to prove that the ongoing costs were improved. It had to be out-the-box multi-language. SharePoint, you had to buy language modules. They proved very expensive each time we did that as well. And what you will see is that we do have now multilingual sites. We have sites in Arabic, and there are all kinds of other options. We're scoping a potential project at the moment in Chinese. It needs control, it needed workflow, etc. We're not actually using that at the moment, although we're now starting to talk about that and see how we can use it. It had to have the potential to do e-commerce. We don't do a lot of e-commerce, but it was an area we wanted to dip our toes into, and it needed to support mobile platforms. I didn't want to build mobile websites. I just wanted our websites to work on mobile devices. I also needed it to promote the idea to the other brands in the organisation. And what we looked at was a white labelling approach. So build a template, build a framework, and then skin that with your graphics, etc. And that's what we've done with Tetley. That's what we do for different regions for Tetley. And that's what we're talking to other brands at Tata Global Beverages about. So how did we get there? Well, we looked at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, who was doing what in the market, who the big players were, who were the up-and-comings, etc. We looked at different solutions. We did still look at SharePoint. Was there a way we could do that? We were looking at what the future of SharePoint was. SharePoint 2013, I think, has a better opportunity as an external-facing CMS, but it still needs a lot of training, and it still is excessively expensive. We looked at Sitecore, FatWire, and other areas. We also worked very closely with FDI, who were our design agency at that time, and Keon, who now became Communisys. And we looked at them as trusted partners who we'd built good relationships with to be able to also help give us advice, and they helped take us in the direction of Sitefinity. A final thing from my point of view that it needed to be was from a technical perspective, it needed to be quite easy to maintain and manage and do future development. So it needed to work off something basic like .NET. I didn't need to struggle finding very specific types of resource to do it, and those specific resources are often very expensive. Over to Gwil.
Hi. Can everyone actually hear what we're saying, by the way? No? Yes? Some of you? Hands up who can't. Right, fair enough. That means either none of you can hear me or all of you can. So whenever you start a project, one of the things that people often say is, before you judge a man, walk a mile in their shoes. If you Google that quote, that normally ends up with, and then you're a mile away and you own their shoes, but that's slightly different. So when we joined the project, we were kind of in the same position that Nick was, which was we took on a project that was in trouble, and people were dissatisfied with the solution that they currently had. And so we need to look as a development company as to what we actually did to improve things. And so the starting point, obviously, even as a technical company, is to have an entirely open mindset, is to actually look at the project, look and see what's wrong, and understand the nuances of the project as developers and for the broader business before one starts promoting a solution. What we also knew was that there was a lack of trust in technology generally. There are a lot of country managers and marketeers in the Tetley brand offices around the world that were kind of losing faith in technology. If it's difficult to use, you don't use it. If it's difficult to use, then you're not particularly enamoured with it, and then what happens? You stop using it, things don't move on, technology doesn't work. And it's always very easy to blame technology as being the failing point. And so obviously, apart from the fact that we had very little time to do stuff because the project needed to be brought back on track, we need to make sure that whatever happened next was right and right first time, because a second set of issues was never going to make anyone happy. So how does one select the right technology? The main thing to do is to have an open mindset and objectively look at the right solutions and what the potential options are, and not to, this is how we work as an organisation, we're very clear not to start by saying we know X content management system, we know how to develop in Y content management system, and therefore these are the most appropriate solutions. We took an approach where we looked at all the requirements of the existing stakeholders, which was helped very much by the fact that people knew what they didn't want because they'd been through an experience with SharePoint, and then looked at what the most appropriate solutions were that were going to come from there. Our methodology, and this is one of the reasons that Tetley and Tata work very closely with us and trusted us as a partner, is to occasionally be in a position where we say, you know what, actually we're not the right provider for you, there's possibly a better solution that's out there and one that we don't deliver it. However, in this particular case, that wasn't going to be an issue for us. As well as looking at the technical aspects of the build, obviously what we needed to look at was kind of how the project was going to run as a whole. The reality is that the Tata site is and the Tetley site rather, is a very nice site, but it's not particularly technically complicated from a development point of view. It's a standard advertising brochureware site. Where it is a little more complicated and where it needed quite a lot of planning was it has elements that are things such as there are country sites which have multiple language variants within each country rather than just separate country sites, where each market had a general template that they needed to work to ensure that the Tetley brand was consistently delivered across the world, but at the same time had specific market needs, different product mixes, etc. And there was also a consideration that it would be very expensive to train everyone to use the content management system that was finally proposed if they needed to come into a single location and be trained, or as we suggested at the time, possibly if we flew around the world to interesting places to train them. So we also needed a solution that enabled us to be able to train people to use the content management system remotely, and therefore save cost and time that way. And then finally, we needed a solution that allows e-commerce to be used, because Tetley in the UK were at the time talking about trialling an e-commerce solution. So you can kind of guess where we got to, given that all the bags around you say Sitefinity, and this is a Sitefinity presentation. But actually, we strongly felt, when we looked at the available options, and we went through things like EpiServer, we looked at some open source systems, we looked at Umbraco, that Sitefinity was the best solution, and for a number of reasons. Sitefinity works exceedingly well with multilingual solutions. We've been developing multi-country, multi-language solutions in Sitefinity for the last 4 or 5 years. It handles the ability to separate countries and languages within countries very, very well. It also, as a flexible content management system, allowed us to reprioritise the order in which sites were being delivered. We had a short time frame in which to deliver 17 websites globally. And at the start of the project, there was an order in which they had to go live. And as the project progressed, different sites needed to be moved and changed because there were different product launches, different priorities. And so as a system, we were able to repurpose what we were doing very easily and deliver sites across countries and locations when they needed them, rather than according to a preset plan. As part of that, what we were also able to do was to customise templates and allow country managers to customise some of the templates within a defined hierarchy, so that they could really personalise what they were doing. All of this meant that we were in a place where people actually started to engage with the content management system. Its ease of use, the fact that we could train people remotely, and the fact that when one is building a website as a developer, it's very easy to come up with the most technologically interesting system, but actually as a developer, what we're delivering is something is then handed on to marketeers for them to use. We ended up with a solution that worked very, very well, that marketers, normal people that use the system on a day-to-day basis, were able to engage with, and it restored their faith in technology. And obviously, as part of that, my final bullet point is that Sitefinity, if you haven't trialled it, and obviously we're a bit of a brand advocate, is very, very user-friendly. It's easy for people who don't use content management systems all the time to use. And the great advantage for that is that people that dip in and dip out are able to manage content and to update sites quickly and easily. So, now I'm going to hand it back to Nick, and he's going to talk you through some of the results.
So what did we end up with? I was hoping to actually take you properly through the websites, but the internet connection here is a bit iffy, and that would make for a pretty rubbish presentation. So I did some screen dumps last night. We basically have the image in the top left is our .com, tetley.com. Our mugs, as we call them, and they take you out to all the different countries and the different language variants of the sites. We then created, the top right-hand side is the base template that we use for most things, with the nice leaves behind it, etc. We create splash pages. This bottom left-hand image is a splash page on the UK website for a promotional period of time. And then the page that you go to behind that is the tetley.co.uk page, the one with Gaffer stood there with his cups. So graphically, I mean, this is what we set out to achieve on the first platform when we were trying to do this on SharePoint. This is where we ended up doing it anyway in Sitefinity. The simplicity of this is the fact that the brand managers can easily get into the back end of all of this information and change it. Our brand managers put this splash page up. Another thing that we were really pleased about was the ability to quickly and relatively cheaply be able to change the theme of a page. We learned very quickly that actually, being a global brand, different regions have they do have a different language verbally, but also how they talk about that product and how they present that product to their markets. So we use the same template, the same sort of structured website, but all we then do is put a new graphics on it. So the top left is the standard template we use with a standard products page. On the right hand side is our French website. You can see we've changed the graphics, but things are generally all sat in the same place. It is exactly the same template, it's just using a different style sheet. And then below that, on the left hand side, we've got our UK products page, but then we've also done an Arabic one as well. It's not gone live yet. It will go live in line with some promotions they're doing in UAE, but it's all built, it's all there ready to go, and we've flipped the template for that as well. And we feel very strongly that the back end is very simple to use. The brand managers are really happy with it. It's done what I expected it to achieve. It's out of the box easy. There are times when you do need to get a bit more technical, and that's when we call on these guys and ask them to write a bit of JavaScript or a bit of code or something if we want something very specific. But your day-to-day content management in here is easy. My view is keep this really simple, make life simple for the guys that have got to use it. We also have pages that are quite informative. We're trying to, how do you put a website up about tea? And how do you do that globally, put a website up about tea? Well, we're trying to tell people stuff about it. So we have the history, we have trivia information, we have maps, where does the tea come from? So we're trying to give people some background on what the product is and where it all comes from. All again, these are templates. They all can be managed through the back end, quite straightforward. We do fun things, more information basically. So we've got the history of tea where we're using a carousel. To get that carousel working, we used a bit of JavaScript, and Community's helped us do that. And we also, in some of our regions, are putting up recipes, etc., things that go well with tea. So we're trying to think a little bit more about how we use it. We initially set off with a very big Web 2.0 view and social media view. We've kind of got to the point now where the website tells you about the product, but we're using Facebook and other tools that are actually more relevant now. We have in the UK an e-store. It is us dipping our toes in there. We're trying to learn about e-commerce. We're trying to see if it's something that we should do or not. But the fact is that we had options. Our option was to use the Sitefinity e-store. There were other ones we could have gone to, but we thought let's keep it all under the same roof for now and see where that goes. It was relatively cheap and quite quick to implement this. The more complicated part was actually getting it to talk to the fulfillment house. But actually the technical end of bringing up the e-store and getting it talking to our payment gateway was a doddle. So like I say, we're trying that. It's new to us. We do more e-commerce in the States on a different platform. So watch this space, I suppose, is where we are with it at the minute. And then we did our corporate site, and I'm very pleased with this. I'm pleased with it, one, from the Sitefinity content management side, the technical end of the project. It was delivered on time. An amazing thing about this is actually where this SharePoint part of the project started to excessively go out of budget. By turning this background and bringing it onto Sitefinity, brought us under budget. The design we're over the moon about. It's from our perspective, actually, the great thing about it is that Tata Global Beverages came into existence at the same time we were designing this website, and now this same design is what's used internally for most internal comms. So I think it's a real positive on the design and how we use it. And it is, when I watch the stats, etc., the most hit page that we've got. So where are we today? We have 18 websites currently on Sitefinity in 11 different languages. Arabic was challenging. Chinese is potentially on its way. We have content owners who are generally brand managers, but sometimes they are agencies they're working with who we've given them access to those websites to manage the content. It is all very simple to use. It achieved that goal. It saved us the money we were looking at. and every now and then you do need a little bit of support, but not much. It's the out of the box is doing what we want it to. From an SEO perspective, we're able to, we've put an XML sitemaps in, we've updated our metadata, which you can do out of the box in Sitefinity, which I thought was great, and quite straightforward to do. So the brand managers, we gave them metadata to start with, we pointed them in the right direction, they now can work on that, and we've done image tagging, etc. So we've actually suddenly seen that our sites now are getting far better hits, the search results are better. If you search for Tetley, yeah, they always come up on the first page of Google. If you search for green tea, we were about the 50th page of Google. Now we're on the second page. So those things are all really helping us, and they're all tools and ways that we find that Sitefinity helps us do that. They're also part of your common things you want to do with a website anyway. I think that's about it from me.
Well, thank you, Nick and Will. As I mentioned, I just wanted to say a quick word about Sitefinity. There's a little bit about us on the slide here. Obviously, we have several customers that you might recognize. We're a content management company. We're actually part of Telerik as well, which is some of you may be familiar with Telerik as a maker of developer and productivity tools for developers. One thing I wanted to stress after this case study, though, that's not really on this slide, is that you're going to talk to a lot of folks like myself the next couple days or here at the show about content management. And I think what you just heard is that even though we as marketers of content management systems will talk to you about several different complex scenarios like content targeting and different things that you might want to do on your website, multi-site management, lots of different things that are very sort of complicated. At the end of the day, what we're still trying to solve for a lot of companies are these basic web content management needs, empowering end users to be able to manage their website in a way that isn't frustrating and doesn't cost a lot of money. So I would say that's a big focus for us at Sitefinity. I'm really happy to hear that it's proven to be successful on the ground for Tetley and for Tata Global Beverages, and I'd encourage you guys to stop by. This is our contact information. The only thing I would say about our contact information, the call out, is that we do have an office here in the UK, so right here in London. Stop by our stand. I can give you some information about how to get hooked up with us there. And I will make a quick pitch that if you stop by our stands at these times, we'll be doing some specific presentations on mobile, social media, and also on personalization.